Clemson is more than just a football school. And this spring, our baseball team, which is led by 3 All ACC players, are going to prove that and so much more.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. I'm your host. You can follow me over on X right here. I am John Bivens. My name is John Bivens. Like you could probably guess that from the Twitter tag. We are your hosts here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available everywhere you get your podcast and over on YouTube. We're part of the amazing network Locked On Podcast, where it is your team every day. Here on the Locked On Clemson podcast, you're getting 3 things. You're getting all sports, all passion, all of the time, where we are bringing you everything you need to know about all things Clemson sports. Today is Wednesday, May 22nd. Today's episode is all about Clemson baseball. We're going to dive into all of our All ACC players, our matchup against Miami. We'll give a preview for that on tomorrow's game, and we're going to go through our weekly segment of our Worried Wednesday. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. And so here we are. For those of you that are new to the podcast, a little introduction for me. My name is John Bivens. Like we said, I am a credentialed media member of the Clemson Sports. We've been credentialed through baseball, basketball, and football. What does credentialed mean? Basically, what that means is we get to go down. And watch the game from press row. We get some stat sheets, a little behind the scenes, talking with the media guys. We also get to dive a little bit more into detail, where we get to go to post-game conferences, hear from the coaches right after game, hear from the different players, the highlighted players from those games, sometimes the opponents. We've sat in a lot of basketball credentialed process. We've been a credential for a lot of basketball, pretty much this whole basketball season. We were there. Baseball, we've been in there a couple games this year, but honestly, college baseball is just, it's not the same being credentialed. You're stuck up in a box. You really don't have a great seat. You don't have a great view, so it's not the same there. Clemson does have one of the best press boxes out there, not dissing Clemson at all. It's just a little different. And then football, we've been credentialed before as well. We're excited about moving forward with that as well this offseason. But today's episode, we are going to talk a lot about baseball. This episode is all about some Clemson baseball, because we're about to kick off an exciting time in college baseball, which is the start of league plays, the start of league tournaments. Yesterday, Tuesday, kicked off the ACC tournament. We saw some games played. We saw Miami beat Louisville, which not many people were surprised about. We predicted that one. But now Wednesday, today, we see a couple more matchups happening. Clemson doesn't play until tomorrow, so we'll talk about that in just a second. But earlier on this week, they came out with their All ACC players. They came out with their All ACC honors for all the different sports in the ACC. Clemson brought home 3 of them. Clemson brought home 3, had 3 players with All ACC honors that was announced Monday. The 3 players they had was Aidan, Knaak, they had Blake Wright, and then they had Cannarella. So we're going to go through those 3, talk about who they are, talk about their stats, about how special they were this season. Aidan Knaak, not only was he excellent in earning this All ACC this year, but he also was the first Clemson Tiger to bring home this award as a first-team All ACC player as a freshman. First freshman to ever do that for Clemson. We said it at the beginning of this season, guys. We said it when we started this podcast. Aidan Knaak is special. He's going to be someone we're going to see a starter in the MLB. We're going to see him be successful. We're going to see him continue playing at Clemson for a couple of years. Really excited to see what he does. Really excited to see his progression, how he continues to grow. Knaak right now this year is 5-1. He's got a 2.96 ERA, batting average. Opponents are only batting .216 against him. He has 97 strikeouts against 26 walks. That's more than 3 strikeouts to 1 walk. Crazy. He's pitched 73 innings over 13 starts. Knaak, he's only allowed 12 extra base hits this year. I'm going to say that again. Knaak on the season has only allowed 12 extra base hits. Crazy number. He leads the team in starts on the mound, which no one predicted at the beginning of the season. But he does. He also leads it in strikeouts. In those 13 starts with Aidan Knaak, Clemson is a massive 12-1 in those games. He's a 12-1. So Aidan Knaak absolutely deserves it. Absolutely deserves the award given, but he earned All ACC freshman team and All ACC first team as a starting pitcher. So we're excited about that. Excited about him bringing home the award. Next up, we have Blake Wright. Blake Wright plays second base dominantly for Clemson. He hit this year .341, great at batting average. He had 21 homers, 2 triples, 8 doubles. Then he paired all those with 70 RBIs and 62 runs. He had a .677 slugging percentage in only 53 games. Played great. Absolutely destroyed this. He earned second team's honors right here. He led the team in batting average, in home runs, in RBIs. Wright earned the third. 2 years ago, he earned third team All ACC honors. He also had a .961 fielding percentage, and he only had 6 errors in 153 chances. That's a really good percentage. 96% of the time he's making the ball. You're happy with that. So this year he gets a second nod as an All-ACC player, getting this year his highest one he's got with a second-team All-ACC player. And then our third All-ACC player is none other than Cannarella. This guy, honestly, I feel like he'd have been higher if it wasn't for injuries. He got caught up in the injury bug. He had a lingering shoulder injury early on the season. I don't think it healed it as it needed it to. I think they let that progress a little bit just so he didn't miss extended time. Last year, he was an All-ACC first-team selection. This year, he's hitting .332, 16 doubles, 2 triples, 9 homers, and he's pairing all of that with 51 RBIs, as well as 50 runs and a .411 on-base percentage. He plays in 51 games. This year, he had 25 multi-hit games. Those 25 games this year, he had multiple hits, including out of that, 7 triple-hit games. Wild number. That's video game numbers. He had 14 multiple RBI games as well. So he played well. Those 3 players had an excellent season, and Clemson has had a pretty successful baseball season. They started off slow, or they started off really hot. They've got a little slow since then. Overall, pretty good baseball season, and these 3 helped lead the way. If it wasn't for these 3, if it wasn't for Aidan Knaak, if it wasn't for Blake Wright, if it wasn't for Cannarella, Clemson baseball would not have the season they've had. So this year, Clemson baseball is out to prove something. Well, Clemson is known as being a football school. Sorry, get a little drink. Clemson is known as being a football school in the national hot headlines. It's not the case. There's so much more than that. And this baseball team, reigning ACC champs, are going to prove that and so much more as they see success this year. So we're excited about all of that and so much more is leading up. Clemson's in a great spot right now, in an absolutely fantastic spot all across the board. And their baseball team, we're going to talk about more, but they're in a good spot to make a deep run. So in just a moment, we'll keep talking about the baseball game as we preview our matchup for Thursday tomorrow against Miami. We'll see you in just 1 minute. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge rewards. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. eBay Motors. You can find that at ebaymotors.com. And here we are, the Locked On Clemson podcast. We are all about some baseball today. Hey, we're excited about it. You should be excited about where baseball's at. You should be excited about where it's going. Clemson they had a little bit of struggles. They're in a little bit of a slump towards the end of the season. We'll talk about that and more in a little bit on our next segment. But right now, we want to preview our Miami matchup. So we play Miami in our first game in the ACC tournament. We're in a pool with Miami, Louisville, and Florida State. So a tough pool, but we should be able to make it out of it. We start with game 1 against Miami on Thursday. We need to win that. Miami beat Louisville early on. Florida State is probably going to beat Louisville, so we got to beat Miami in this game. It's a huge matchup. We played Miami in just 3 games this season. All 3 of them were on the road. So before we get into our matchup, what do we need to see from them? We got to see what we need to see, what happened in the past. So we played them March 28th, 29th, and 30th. And that 28th game, that was a heartbreaker. That was the 3rd loss of Clemson's season. They were 22-2 before going into this, and they've lost that first game. And so that was a fun game. Clemson started off. Miami took an early lead. They scored in the first run, or they scored in the first inning. Clemson followed that back up with a run in the second, and then in the third. And then nobody scored until the 9th inning. The 9th inning, the leadoff batter drew a walk, and the next batter at a 2-2 count bolted, hit a massive home run, walk-off home run off the foul pole, or right over the foul pole. It was ruled fair. Could have been foul. Might have called foul, but it was ruled fair. Kept it at fair for Miami to win 3-2 in the first game of that. They won the first game. Moving on to the second game, though, Clemson came back, and they won. They won 3-2 back. We scored that back, and we took it off. They built a 3-1 lead early on, and then Miami scored a run later on, but overall they held a lead 3-2 overall. That got us back in the win column, 23-3, sits into an ACC at that time. Nick Clayton had a good game that day. He pitched 3 innings, relieving. He earned the win. He only allowed 1 hit through those 3 innings with no runs, 2 walks, and paired that with 3 strikeouts there. Austin Gordon did get the save, pitched 1.1 innings to record that, and Miami starter Ray Sleeginger suffered the losses. He had 4 hits, 3 runs, and 2 walks, just 8 strikeouts in 7 innings. Overall, our scores were Jimmy Obertop had a great game, had a run-scoring double. Will Taylor got an RBI by being hit by a pitch with the bases loaded. So it was a good game. Excited had that. We had that win, which is nice. And then our third game was Aidan Knaak, right? This was one of Aidan's first big performances as they started off the year. We won that third game 7-0 over Miami. Aidan Knaak pitched 7 scoreless innings, only allowing 2 hits with 10 strikeouts in 7 innings. He really played excellent that game. Played very, very well that Saturday afternoon. We won the series there. It was our first series win over Miami since 2012, and the first one at Miami since 2006. So that was huge. That was a huge win. That was a career high for at that time. He's passed those records by then, but at that point it was most innings pitched and most strikeouts and least amount of walks. So it was a great run from them. It was great bounce back, great momentum starter for Aidan Knaak in that. In the first inning, Jacob Heiderlinger had our scoring off, had an infield single that brought in 3 runs. And then he also later on had more RBIs. Cannarella had a 3-run double in the 6th. So it was a great game. Our bats were working. We were getting on base. We were scoring. We were playing Clemson baseball, especially with Aidan Knaak at the field. I feel like if Aidan Knaak's on the mound for Clemson, is a very high chance of winning. Very, very high chance of winning. I mean, go back to his records. 13 starts, 12 wins. If he's on the mound, I feel comfortable. But that was that Miami series. So with all that being the case, what we saw is throughout all of Clemson's matchups against Miami this year, all 3 games, they were at Miami. We didn't play any at home. We scored early. Like, Miami took the lead once early on. The other 2 games, we scored early. We had the lead in all 3 games late into the game until that walk-off in the 9th. So basically what we got to focus on is we got to score, and we've got to let our bullpens got to make sure they don't score after it. So in order for us to win tomorrow, in order for us to beat Miami in this first game, our bats have got to come out alive. Our starter pitcher has got to, whoever Eric, Coach Backett decides to start on the mound, he's got to come out and pitch consistently, put some innings in, not allow a lot of runs, not get some people out, and then our bullpen's got to come in and finish that job. I know that sounds like simple baseball, but sometimes you don't need it in-depth what's going to happen. You don't need some complicated to get the job done. No, it's simple. Don't allow runs, score fast. That's how we win. That's how Clemson wins. That's what we're going to need from Miami. That's what we're going to need from Clemson as we play Miami. So, honestly, I think this is a winnable game. I honestly do. I don't think this is going to be something that's like a huge matchup. I don't think this is going to be something that Clemson is going to struggle hard. I think if we're either going to win, we're going to beat them, or we're going to beat ourselves. I don't think Miami has the team to beat us in a one-game game. I think they have the potential to survive as we beat ourselves. There's been some games where Clemson is known for dropping the ball, for having some errors, for putting up some late runs, for allowing a walk-off home run, right? For our bullpen giving up runs. We have that tendency. We have that history. So in order for us to win, I think we've got to eliminate those. We've got to eliminate the aspects of that. We've got to eliminate beating ourselves, limit our mistakes, and score runs. And if we do that, we'll be in good shape. If we can do that, we'll be in really good shape in order to win this game. But with all that being said, we're going to wrap up the episode in just a minute after this ad break as we talk about our Worried Wednesday segment. So we will see you in just a moment. Sorry for the ice in the background. Hope you enjoyed that. But I had to get a drink from my good old Clemson mug, Ipte mug. But welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. We are here every Wednesday. We do a segment called Worried Wednesday. What is that? You can probably guess. If you're an everydayer, you know what it is. It is a day where we go through and we talk about something that we're worried about. We have this conversation regarding what about Clemson athletics are we worried about. We could go a couple different directions. We could be worried about the transfer portal, which everyone is right now with Dabo. So we're going to take a little break. We could go into Dabo's comments and his ideology on the transfer portal and his comments and his views on that and how he feels about different things. And we could go into detail about all of that. We could go into detail about his transfer attitude and all that kind of stuff. We could do that, 100%. We could go into basketball. We've got some transfers. We've got 4 transfers, pretty much a fifth with Air Force transfer last year sitting out redshirting. We could go into the hole left by P.J. Hall. We could be worried about Chase Hunter's future. Are we worried if he gets into the draft and gets drafted? Are we worried that he won't get drafted? Like that bittersweet moment. We want him to get drafted because obviously that'd be awesome. We also don't want him to get drafted because it'd be great to have him back. Or what if he doesn't get drafted and he decides just to retire basketball or even transfer? All those questions there. Worried about that. We could be worried about Clemson as a whole with this lawsuit going on with ACC and possibly dismantling with FSU, Clemson, UNC all having talks about leaving. The comments on the lawsuit about how much money Clemson's going to earn, and are they going to have the money to be able to take care of what they need to take care of? Are they going to have the ability to continue being this conference? Are they going to have the ability to keep being the ACC? Or are they going to go somewhere? And then if they go somewhere, are we going to be worried about where they go? Is there a chance we go to the SEC? Is there a chance we go to the Big 10 or Big 12? Is there a chance we join Notre Dame and are kind of this independent school? There's so many, right? There's all different kinds of question marks there. So those are all aspects we could talk about it. If you couldn't tell, Clemson's in a great spot, but there are some things to worry about. Instead of all that, we're going to focus in on what this whole episode's been about, and we're going to dive into focusing and keeping our focus on Clemson baseball. Look, the biggest thing we're worried about, Clemson baseball, it's something to be worried about. It's something to be a little concerned. We ended the season at 40-13, which you're like, really, you're worried about 40-13? Here's what we're worried about. We started off with only 3 losses through almost 30 games. Yeah, only 3 losses through 30 games. Our record, we started off the year 4-1. Then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15-2, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 22-3, 24-3, 25, 26, 27, 28, 28-3. We started off the season 28-3. I just walked you through when we lost those games. That's the reason I counted those so you could see the progression. We won a lot, lost 1 game. Won a lot, lost 1 game. Won a lot, lost 1 game. After that 28-3, That's when things started going wrong. So we'll take that out. 28-3, that's 31 games. That means the rest of the season. So we start out 31 games, 28-3. Well, if you take that off, that means we went 12-10 to end the season. 12-10. 28-3 to 12-10. It's a big jump. That's a really, really big difference. And that's something to be worried about. There is some kind of slump. There is something going on at Clemson right now where baseball isn't clicking. You can point it at a lot of areas. Our bats aren't hitting as much. A lot of our starting pitchers aren't pitching exactly where we need them to pitch. Our bullpen has been a constant worry. If you're a part of Clemson X, you've seen comments regarding Clemson bullpens, how it's a thing to be worried about, how it's something you should be concerned about, right? You've seen those comments. You've heard those thoughts. Clemson has strong areas. Clemson has the potential to be the best team in the nation. We saw that with 28-3. But with all that said, we've ended the season on a slump. We've ended a season where we're not in a hot spot. The momentum is not in our way. Shout out to Monday Momentum's our everydayers. You know what I'm talking about. But our momentum isn't swinging the right way. We're worried. We should be really concerned about the last 22 games, almost going 500 in them. That's concern. That's a concern there. There's some kind of slump going on, but they've got to identify what's going on and get it figured out before tomorrow's game. The next thing is you can be worried about pitching. When you go through our pitching, when you go through our roster, you know there's only 3 people with an ERA of less than 3 runs on our team. Here they are. Nathan Jaworski, who has 3 games appearances, and he has a 0 ERA. Happy about that, but only 3 appearances. Then Jacob McGovern, he has 8 appearances with a 2.53 ERA. Then you got Aidan Knaak, 13 appearances, 2.96 ERA. Happy with those, right? You're happy with those. Other than that, there's not many other players that have a good ERA. When you look at our starters right now are we're going to go just our top 5 starters as far as games started. Aidan Knaak, 13 games started, has a 2.96 ERA. Outside of that, everyone else has a +4. Tristan Smith has 10 games started, has a 4.17 ERA. Billy Barlow, who started off as our ace, he's appeared in 13 games, started 10 of those, has a 4.3 ERA. Ethan Darden has 16 game appearances, 9 starts, 4.4 ERA. Austin Gordon, 17 game appearances, 5 starts, 5.1 ERA. Our starters are allowing the 4 or 5 runs a game. With our offense, we can overcome that, but you're not too excited about that. That's not something to be proud of. And then if you go into our bullpen, Rob Hughes has played 13 different games. He's appeared in 13 games right now. Has a 9.53 ERA. That hurts, right? That's not something to be proud of. Nick Clayton, 15 appearances, 6.64 ERA. Joe Allen, 12 appearances, 6.35. Reed Garris, 15 appearances, 4.96. Lucas Malstedt, 24 appearances, 4.4. Rough. Our only bullpen guy who's appeared a lot of games and has a good ERA is Drew Titsworth, who's 16 appearances with a 3.5 ERA. Our bullpen allows runs, and that's not a recipe for success. It is never going to be a successful time if you're allowing your bullpen to give up so much runs. So with that being said, Clemson's got to get out of the slump. In order for Clemson to become successful, in order for us to make another ACC championship run, nobody's predicting us to. Everyone's releasing their brackets. We predicted us to here on the Clemson Tigers or on Locked on Clemson. We predicted that win for us to win it, but a lot of people aren't predicting it. And it's because they're worried, as they should be, about Clemson's last 22 games, last pretty much half of the season, and they're worried about our bullpen. They're worried about, can we prevent runs? Our offense can score. They've proved that. Our offense can score for sure. But can our defense, can our pitching prevent runs and allow that to win? We can't allow any blown saves. We can't allow any late inning leads given away. Can't allow that. We've got to win, and we've got to have our bullpen preventing runs. So that's huge. That's something to be worried about, but it's something to watch. But with all that being said, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Locked on Clemson podcast. This week, we're going to dive more into this baseball as we recap how the games go, give some other matchups, that kind of stuff, and dive into some more sports as well. Before we close out, we do just want to say thank you. This is a genuine moment. It might be a little too sappy for some of y'all, but I just want to say I appreciate it. It is so amazing having this family, this audience, you all as everyday listeners. We are so grateful to you for who you are, for giving us the listens. Man, it's just so awesome. We appreciate the chance. We appreciate you just diving in with us, talking through Clemson sports. We love diving into conversations with people who love Clemson, who are passionate about the Tigers, passionate about running down the hill, passionate about the traditions, and respect the quality of athletics at Clemson University. So we appreciate each and every one of you who are our everyday listeners joining us. We would love to grow the family. If you're listening to this, want to join into this family, we'd love to have you. Jump in, subscribe to this podcast, jump in, follow us over wherever you listen to your podcast at, rate us some 5 stars. Hey, our biggest thing that we would love to see you do, we obviously subscribe. We're on this road to journey for 1,000 subscribers that we would greatly appreciate if you could help. But the biggest thing I'd love to see you do, drop a comment on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts on today's episode. Let us know your thoughts on other episodes. Hit us up on Twitter. You can find me right here at I am John Bivens. Hit us up on Twitter. I'd love to have a conversation with you over on there. DM us. We never know. If you want to join the show, let us know. We might bring you on as a guest if you have something to talk about to kind of digest through there. We'd love to have all your kind of opinion. I'd love to have conversations with you. Let's have this conversation. Let's grow this fan base. Let's grow this family. Let's grow this network and see more people passionately, actively following Clemson Tigers athletics. So we appreciate all of you. But yeah, with all that being said, we are going to wrap up on this. Hit us with a subscribe. Hit us with a follow. That way every single day you can have your first listen here on Locked On Clemson podcast. We can't wait to see you tomorrow on the next episode. Until then, you know what to do. You keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring. And as always, say it with me, go Tigers.